The US is planning for a future war with China being one of the most influential nations on the planet. Along with having an extremely strong military, the US has always needed to prepare for any possibility. But now, those preparations have a new twist. Elon Musk has been invited to the Pentagon and will purportedly soon learn about the US plan for war with China. This is a complete turnaround of US domestic policy. For what may be the first time in the country's history, an unelected official is heading to the country's most important war room, which could also have huge implications both for America's approach to the Chinese challenge and the way it deals with China from now on. News broke March 20 that Musk was heading to the Pentagon the following day, and he was going soon. As of press time on March 21, Musk will already be in the five-sided foxhole, learning everything that he can about the US and its secret plans for war with China. According to the New York Times, two unnamed officials confirmed Musk's visit on March 20. Another told the outlet that Musk's briefing will focus on China, with a fourth confirming nothing other than the fact that Musk will be at the Pentagon on Friday. Whatever the case may be, the briefing represents a massive expansion of Musk's role in US President Donald Trump's administration. Already the head of the Department of Governmental Efficiency, or DOGE, Musk has gained increasing influence in US politics since Trump became president. DOGE itself is an interesting example. The organization isn't an official government agency, and experts believe it doesn't have the power to withdraw funding from any of the federal agencies it's chosen to get involved with. However, DOGE, and Musk by extension, clearly have influence, as investigations into US spending appear to impact Trump's policies. As the White House put it back in February, those leading this mission with Elon Musk are doing so in full compliance with federal law, appropriate security clearances, and as employees of the relevant agencies, not as outside advisors or entities. The implication here is that DOGE is working in a consulting role for other US agencies. However, inviting Musk to the Pentagon seems to be a step further than the Trump administration has taken to this point. As the New York Times puts it, allowing Musk access to some of America's most closely guarded secrets would be a dramatic expansion of his already extensive role as an advisor to President Trump and leader of his efforts to slash spending and purge the government of people and policies they oppose. So, who invited Musk to the Pentagon? It appears the answer is US Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth. The New York Times says it is Hegseth who provided Musk with the relevant security clearances, and it's he who will determine how much of the US plan for China the DOGE head needs to know about. Sean Parnell, who's the chief spokesman for the US Defense Department, confirmed the invitation in a statement. The Defense Department is excited to welcome Elon Musk to the Pentagon on Friday, Parnell said. He was invited by Secretary Hegseth and is just visiting. That statement seems to contradict the New York Times report. On one hand, it's claiming that Musk is about to be briefed on key US war secrets. On the other hand, the Defense Department seems to be implying that Musk will just have a look around the Pentagon, almost like a tourist. So, what will Musk actually learn during his briefing? The US plan for war with China is a secret for a reason. Any leaks would allow China to prepare. It could reinforce its defenses and fill in any military gaps that the US would look to exploit, making the plan far less effective according to the New York Times. However, we do actually know a little bit about the plan. It's believed the plan will be shared as part of a presentation involving between 20 and 30 slides, which lay out precisely how the US would approach a war with China. The plan covers every aspect of that war, starting with the key indicators the US is looking for to suggest a war is coming and how it will determine if the threat is legitimate. From there, the plan, referred to as an O plan in military jargon, supposedly details the Chinese targets the US intends to hit, along with the time periods for those hits. At 20 to 30 slides, it's likely not the most detailed plan in the world. Musk will receive a briefing ahead of an in-depth description of every facet of an American war with China. However, even that briefing is enough. The richest man on earth, an unelected official who is South African by birth, is about to discover military secrets that typically never leave the Pentagon. And it raises a ton of questions about Musk's role in the US government, not to mention the challenges that sharing such secrets brings. Several media outlets have already reported on how politicians, both domestically and outside the US, are confused about what Musk actually does. On February 6, the BBC reported that the first 2 weeks of Musk's work with DOGE led to the dismantling of a federal agency, millions of civil service workers being offered the ultimatum of quitting or being fired, and Musk gaining access to the US federal payment system. All of this happened as Musk managed to entrench himself further into Trump's inner circle, becoming one of the president's most trusted advisors. The outlet also notes that Musk has been a near constant presence in Washington since Trump became president. He has top security clearance within the White House and has even gone as far as to move beds into the building's Federal Personnel Office, which is next door to the West Wing. Some believe this is a good thing. As one former program manager at the Musk-led company Tesla put it, he's only concerned with the objective at hand. I think he views interpersonal issues and conflicts as ancillary things that are not worth his time. He can get more out of people than anyone else I've ever seen, claims the former Tesla employee. Perhaps that's why Trump values Musk so much, that he's allowing him to be briefed on key US military secrets. The DOGE head may be able to deliver opinions uncolored by emotional conflicts or personal biases. However, the same Tesla employee also highlights why Musk being invited to the Pentagon could be such an issue. It's got to be a culture shock, says the former Tesla manager when discussing Musk's growing influence in US politics. Others are less charitable in their opinions. On March 20, the same day that news emerged about Musk's Pentagon visit, NBC News highlighted that Musk may have ascended to his position because of the sheer amount of money he threw at Trump's election campaign. The outlet points out that Trump sunk around $261 million into that campaign in 2024 alone. Now he's demonstrating his willingness to use his wallet to reward Trump loyalists in Congress, and some fear to punish others as he closely watches the political landscape. This new report says that Musk has given $6,600 each, the maximum campaign donation from an individual allowed under federal law, to several members of Congress who support impeaching judges who make rulings that go against Trump's plans. Therein lies the problem for the US, and one of the main reasons many are concerned about Musk's invitation to the Pentagon. Musk isn't an elected official, but he's practically acting like one in his role at DOGE. And while Musk has Trump's ear, the fact that he's neither elected nor considered a federal employee leaves him free to make donations to people who support his and Trump's agenda. It's a conflict of interest that many believe should have no place in any discussions related to the US and its secret plans to take on China. One article published by The Conversation went so far as to suggest that Musk is coordinating a complete state capture over the US government. It defines state capture as the appropriation of state resources by political actors for their own ends, either private or political. Opinions may vary on whether Musk's role at DOGE and his campaign donations suggest that he's trying to manipulate US politics for his own gain. Still, the fact that people are even thinking that Musk may be involved in a state capture could be enough reason for some to question why the DOGE head is even heading to the Pentagon in the first place. But let's look beyond Musk's potential agenda for a moment to Musk's ties to China. As the New York Times pointed out, the US plan for war with China is top secret. Even the slightest hint that the plan could be leaked should be a cause for concern. That isn't to say Musk would intentionally leak the plan to anybody, but as the old saying goes, loose lips sink ships, and it's possible that Musk learning these secrets could become a problem due to his close ties to China. According to Vox, Musk himself has said that he's kind of pro-China, which has led him to defending China's censorship and similar policies in the past. However, it's his business ties to China that may be the biggest concern. China is important to the success of Musk's electronic vehicle company, both as a consumer nation and the supply of many of the parts and some of the labor required to build Tesla's vehicles. In the fourth quarter of 2024 alone, Tesla sold 196,902 vehicles in China, which accounted for almost 40% of the company's total sales. Total Tesla sales to China for the year amounted to 657,102 vehicles at retail, which was an 8.85% increase over the company's 2023 figures, and emphasizes just how important the country is to Musk's ongoing business success. Perhaps Musk's pro-China comments are indicative of him wanting to maintain that strong business relationship. Isaac Stonefish, who's the CEO of the strategy risk consultancy, says Musk's comments on China aren't out of the norm for the CEO of a major Western business. However, he also points out that the distinction is that Tim Cook, Apple's CEO, is not on Twitter talking about how awful US aid is or meddling in European politics. Musk's Tesla-based relationship with China stretches back to 2019 when Tesla opened a gigafactory in Shanghai. That factory opening was funded by hundreds of millions of dollars in loans from Chinese banks, leading to Tesla becoming the first wholly foreign-owned car company to operate in China. Several Chinese companies also have their fingers in the Tesla pie. At one point, Tencent, which is China's biggest internet company, owned 5% of Tesla's stock. It's since divested its holdings, though Tencent also owns WeChat, often dubbed China's Twitter, and the social media platform hailed by Musk as the perfect model for the everything app that he'd like to transform X, formerly Twitter, into. Of course, business ties alone are no evidence of potential malfeasance, but they do demonstrate that Musk has a vested interest in China's success. If part of the US plan for defeating China involves damaging China's economy, thus limiting its ability to fund its military, would Musk have a problem with that? A weakened Chinese economy means less money being spent on his Teslas and could also make it harder for him to use his Shanghai Gigafactory to generate profit. A conflict of interest may emerge, which could create a path that sees Musk sharing the secrets he may learn during his Pentagon briefing with the very people who aren't supposed to know about them. The opposite may also be true. As NBC News noted on March 16, Musk's close business ties with China could also lead to the DOGE head serving as something of a bridge between China and the Trump administration. Though, as Stone points out, it might not be in the way that Musk would like. It would be very striking and unlikely if Beijing doesn't see this as a great gift, he said when referring to Musk's role with DOGE. Beijing is long used to using what it calls friends, the technical Chinese term for useful idiots, for folks who can advance the interests of the party. Beijing is very used to using people like Elon Musk to do that. So where Musk may see himself as a bridge between the US and China, it may be that China is simply using him to get what it wants. Things like US military secrets. But even if China doesn't try to use its relationship with Musk to extract the secrets Tesla's owner will learn during his Pentagon visit, there's also another reason why some are questioning the briefing: Musk's ability to comprehend what he sees. This doesn't mean that Musk isn't an intelligent person. He's clearly an astute businessman who excels at investing in the right companies and branding himself. However, he's not a military-minded person. Before this briefing, Musk hasn't been involved in any country's military, be that America's or South Africa's, in any meaningful way. That could be a problem, as the New York Times notes. Operational plans for major contingencies, like war with China, are extremely difficult for people without extensive military planning and experience to understand, says the news outlet. The technical nature is why presidents are typically presented with the broad contours of a plan rather than the actual details of documents. While it remains unclear just how many details Musk will learn, especially given that the presentation he's set to view contains around 30 slides, that lack of understanding of what he hears and sees isn't ideal for the US military. For example, Musk could learn a detail that he decides isn't especially important to the US and its secret plan. Believing that particular detail is unimportant could lead him to sharing that information, which is far more sensitive than Musk realizes, and ultimately finds it to China. Poof! The US plan for a war with China is compromised in a heartbeat. This is the useful idiot policy Stone mentions made clear. China may not view Musk as an idiot in general terms, but it knows that his lack of military experience could create openings for learning about US plan details that it shouldn't know. Musk himself may have no nefarious intentions, but that won't matter if his misunderstanding of what he learns leads to him sharing sensitive information. With so many risks surrounding Musk's visit to the Pentagon becoming clear, there's another vital question. Why on earth is Elon Musk being briefed at the Pentagon at all? Nobody from the Defense Department has given any concrete reasons. However, Musk's role as the head of DOGE may have something to do with his visit. Musk has already used that position to suggest massive cuts to various federal agencies and their budgets. According to Newsweek, DOGE claims that its efforts have saved the US an estimated $115 billion already. Around 75,000 federal workers have already accepted Musk's offer to quit their roles. USAID contracts have also been cut by 83%, with the rest of the programs the organization used to oversee being folded into the State Department. Musk's target is more ambitious than what he's already achieved. He plans to make $1 trillion of cuts during his time at DOGE. Therein may lie the reason why he's been invited to the Pentagon, says the New York Times. For instance, the outlet suggests that the US war plan for China may involve using its fleet of 11 aircraft carriers in new ways. Each of those carriers cost a lot of money. The newest program, which resulted in the Gerald R. Ford class of carrier, cost $37.3 billion in 2018, with each ship in that program costing $13 billion to build. Perhaps Musk is heading to the Pentagon to make DOGE-related recommendations on how to cut these kinds of costs. If so, a balance needs to be struck. Yes, the plan may include unnecessary expenditures. However, it's also possible that Musk's orders to mothball certain ships or other elements of the plan could cause issues elsewhere in the US approach to China. Again, Musk's lack of military knowledge may override reason, leading to disadvantageous cuts being made. After all, this is a man who's already said that the US military should stop buying F-35 fighter jets and similar human-piloted jets. What if those types of jets are vital to the US plan? Would Musk recommend slashing them even after his briefing? We can't know for sure. Still, the prospect is likely terrifying to the military minds who worked so hard on creating the plan. Assuming Musk isn't heading to the Pentagon to slash budgets, he may have another reason for his visit: business opportunities. Remember that Musk isn't a federal employee. He's a special government employee, technically independent of the US government, despite his influential role at DOGE. Musk also has his fingers in a lot of defense-related pies. For instance, his Starlink satellites, which orbit the Earth and provide communications and data services to multiple militaries, might be involved in the US plan for war with China. If they are, Musk may want to learn how the US plans to protect those satellites if war erupts. And if they're not, he may see an opportunity to generate some profit by suggesting the US adjust its plan to incorporate the Starlink system. Musk also heads SpaceX, which is around $22 billion in government contracts and may set to receive more in the future. He's already heavily invested in using SpaceX to build military satellite networks that confront the Chinese threat. Perhaps the briefing he'll receive at the Pentagon will focus on those satellites and Musk's opportunities to deliver more to the US, ahead of the secrets the US needs to keep under wraps related to its plans for China. Again, we can only speculate at this point, and there's still another twist to this little tale. It's possible that Elon Musk isn't going to receive a top secret briefing at all. On March 21, Reuters reported on comments made by President Trump about Musk's Pentagon visit. China will not even be mentioned or discussed, Trump said in a Truth Social post about the visit. That claim aligns with Musk's past claims that he would recuse himself from any meetings that could represent a conflict of interest. A briefing about the US plan for war with China would certainly amount to such a conflict given Musk's business ties to China. Of course, this all comes down to who you believe. Is Trump telling the truth when he says that Musk won't learn anything about China during his March 21 briefing? Or does the New York Times have it right? Is Musk on the path to becoming the sort of useful idiot that China always hoped he would become? Tell us your thoughts about the answers to those questions in the comments, along with letting us know what you think about Elon Musk being invited to the Pentagon. Does he have a right to be there? Should the US be granting Musk so much access? Let us know what you think, and remember to subscribe to The Military Show for up-to-the-minute commentary on the latest US military developments.